Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Hari Om. Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Deva Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Hari Om. I was asked to share a little bit about Sri Swami Chidananda Ji Maharaj. I feel a little bit a little bit shy to do so, to share personal stories about this living and talking God among us. I affectionately called him Daddy Ji, because with all my heart, he is the father of my soul, of my heart, and his love runs in my heart, in my DNA. Everything that is worth knowing in this world came from him. And I love him immensely for everything he has brought into my life and everything he still brings into my life. I will humbly speak about him. I am unable to describe the vast universe with my very limited vision. I'm unable to describe the vast ocean with my very limited view of a few drops. And I'm unable to describe Swami Chidananda Ji with my very limited knowledge. But what I can share is my personal experience and the impact that it has had in my own little personal life. So I met Swami Chidananda Ji when I was 1, as a baby. And then I didn't see him for many years after. I was about 16 years old when one night I was looking at a picture of him because some people had told me how strict he was, and he was a real guru, but he was so severe and he was so strict, and I was intrigued. So I looked at a picture of him, and I was attracted to that picture like a strong magnet. You know, I would look at his face and his eyebrows and his eyes and his chin, and I would look at him. I felt an electric current go to my heart, and he told me, I am coming soon. And in the dream, when I woke up, I realized that his body was a skeleton, and this was telling me I am not the body. Because the night before I was thinking how thin he is, how thin, but in my dream itself, he was loving and he was blissful. And it's only when I woke up that I realized, oh, that body was a skeleton. And one of the very first things that I would hear Swamiji say when I finally met him again at the age of 16 or 17 was, I am not the body. You are not the body. You are not the mind. And it would remind me that in that dream, what I saw was a skeleton, but he was still blissful. And already he was telling me, you are not the body. I am not the body. And this had an impact on me. And later, I would see him in the retreats. And his presence was, as you know, Swami Chidananda Ji was so very blissful and humble. And everything he said had a meaning. Every movement, every second of his life was a blessing and was meaningful. One day at a retreat in the United States, where we would see him 3 times a day, he would give us so generously 3 satsangs a day, morning, afternoon, evening satsang. And one day, a little before the afternoon satsang, I was walking with my friend, Isabel, and I was walking barefoot on the grass, and I stepped on a thorn. But when the thorn went through my skin, I felt every millimeter of that thorn go in, as if in slow motion. And at the same time, I felt a very strong bliss come in my heart. And usually, I mean, what is unusual about this story is that usually when I hurt myself, if I hurt my foot, if I would hurt myself, you would hear me from a distance, you know? You could hear me scream and be pissed off. And, you know, if I knocked my toe on the bed, you know, you could hear me. But when I stepped on that thorn, I felt this bliss come in my heart. And I put my hand on my friend's shoulder, and I looked under my foot, and I saw this thorn sticking on my foot. And I felt like this thorn was a friend, and I removed it. I looked at it, and I said, something worse could have happened. And I threw it away in the bushes, and I kept on walking. And in the afternoon satsang with Swami Chidanandaji, we had that day a question-answer period, and Swamiji would kindly answer our questions. And my friend Mark Madhava from California asked Swamiji, Swamiji, can the Guru have an impact on the disciples' karma? And Swamiji said, yes, if the Guru is a Satguru, he is like a very large ship. You get in comfortably, and he takes you safely from one continent across the ocean to the other continent. But if the Guru is not a Sadguru, well, he's like a log on the ocean, and you better know how to paddle. And then he started telling us about the story of Sai Baba Shirdi, who was sitting with his disciples by a fire, and one disciple dreamt that his chest was being crushed by a stone, by a monster. And Sai Baba smiled at the disciple, who went back to sleep, who had that dream again, and woke up. And again, Sai Baba was looking at his disciple and smiling and laughing. And the disciple said, why are you laughing? I'm suffering in this dream, and my chest is being crushed, and you laugh. And Sai Baba said, your karma was to die of a tuberculosis, but it was relieved in that dream. So that's the story that Swamiji is telling as an answer to this question. And then he looks in the room where we're all sitting in front of him, and he looks in the room and as if he's searching for somebody, and he says, in the same manner, and again, in the same manner, and his eyes are searching, and he sees me, and he says, in the same manner, it may happen that the disciple will step on a thorn while the karma of the disciple was to be impaled from the bottom to the head. Impaled in the sense of, you know, like a long, long stick, you know, and a long stick that is a torture. Empal is to thrush to put a stick through the bottom to the head. That's the way to, at a war that used to be done, is to torture and kill. It's horrible. It's horrible. And so he says the karma of the disciple can be to be impaled from the bottom to the head, but instead the disciple steps on a thorn. I think I said thank you for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and I still say thank you to this day. And I was meeting the power and yet the very humble way of Swami Chidanandaji to bless, to protect, and again, my vision is very limited. I cannot see everything about him. I can only say my experience, my little perspective, but I was so grateful. And he was teaching me that I cannot judge because I don't know what I have done in past lives. And I'm very grateful and blessed to have him in my life today. And later, well, this was when I was about 19, 20 years old. This happened when I was about 19, 20 years old. And during my teenage years, my early 20s, something would happen, and that became very meaningful later. But I didn't understand the meaning of it in the early days, but I would often have very strong nightmares of being chased by huge monsters and having very strange nightmares. I won't give you all the details, but basically at the end of every dream, I would look at the sky, repeat Om Triambakam mantra, and Swamiji would be right there saying, "Do not fear, you are never alone. I am always with you." These 3 sentences he would say with the same expression, the same face. Very up close, I would see him say, "Do not fear, you are never alone. I am always with you." And later, I will come back to those dreams later, because first I want to tell you what happened in the meantime that was very meaningful to me. When I was 25, I was pregnant with my daughter, Mangalarupa. I called Swamiji to bless this soul, and I asked him, "Please send me a soul who loves you. I don't care about the rest, you know. Please send me a soul who loves you." And I was about 3 months pregnant when I had this dream where I was walking with a crowd, I was walking with women, and the grass was very high and it was very difficult to walk. And in a distance, I saw a man, and in my heart, I knew it was Francis of Assisi. So St. Francis was approaching a crowd, so I walked towards the crowd, and he was on the right end of the crowd, and as he approached the crowd, the people would spread to let him pass through. And I went to the left end of the crowd, and I kneeled down and I prayed, "God, please let me see his eyes. I just want to see his eyes." And Oh. Sorry. That's why I didn't want to talk. um, she's been insisting for 3 weeks for me to speak, and I was like, no, 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 no. So, so I was praying, please let me see his eyes, and St. Francis came to me, and my hands were like this, and I was praying that I wanted to see his eyes. And he came to me and took my hands and pulled them up so I would stand. And he said, Ingrid. And I thought, how come he knows my name? And I thought, oh yeah, of course, he's God, so he knows everybody's name, of course. And he says, Babaji has told me about you. And he was talking about Swami Chidananda. And he had a little girl in his arms who was a split image of my daughter, Mangalarupa. And he told me, here, take good care of her. And he put her in my arms. And she had so much love for him, and he had so much love for her. And as he walked away, I could see the little girl looking at him with immense love. And then I woke up that morning. I think it was about 2 days later. Well, when I woke up, I thought, oh, my mind is playing tricks on me. It's giving me beautiful dreams, you know, how nice, you know. And then 2 days later, I hear that Swamiji is going to be in Assisi at the end of the month. This was in April 94. And somebody tells me, oh, Swamiji is going to Assisi for a few days to give a retreat on yoga at the end of the month. And in my heart, I knew, oh, I'm going to be there. But in my bank account, it was impossible. There was no way I could be there. There was no way I could go to Europe for 3 or 4 days from Montreal, Canada, you know. And then the same week, Ram Swarup calls me, who assisted Swami Chidananda for so many years. He calls me and says, Hari Om, Swamiji wants to know if you will be in Assisi at the end of the month. I thought, this is strange. Swamiji never called me to know if I was going to be in this city or that city. He was always traveling, always giving retreats here and there. And even when he came to my hometown, he never called to know if I was going to be there. So I tell Ram Swarup, oh, that's funny. I had a dream of St. Francis, and I was going to tell the dream. And he says, yeah, Swamiji knows. Swamiji wants to know if you're going to be in Assisi at the end of the month. And I say, well, I would love to, but I can't afford it. I'm sorry. I would so love to, but there's no way I can go. Okay, Hari Om. He hangs up. 3 days later, he calls me again. Hari Om. Swamiji wants to know if you will be in Assisi at the end of the month. I say, I'd love to, but I can't. I'm so sad I can't make it. But sorry about that. I would have loved to. It's so kind that Swamiji would ask, and okay. And I felt torn and sad that I couldn't make it, but you know, I thought, oh well, that's life. And he calls again. He called me about 4 or 5 times in the month of April. and the retreat was approaching. And the last time he calls, he says, Hari Om, Swamiji says that because you are expecting a baby, you should not be upset about missing the retreat in Assisi. So he would like to invite you and to invite you for accommodation. You don't need to worry about anything. Swamiji invites you. He wants you to be there. And you manage for the plane ticket. So I thought, okay, I'm slow to understand, but now I get it. Swamiji really wants me to be there. This is a wonderful blessing, so very thoughtful and kind. I don't know what it is, but he wants me to be there. And I told Ram Swarup, well, I can't wait to see what miracle God is going to make happen for me to be able to manage with the plane ticket. And that same night, my daughter's father comes home, and with the mail, he had many envelopes in his hand and starts opening the mail. And he opens an envelope and looks and says, oh, this is my air mile points from Air Canada. You wanted to go to Italy. I have just enough tickets to go for a trip to Europe. Here. And he hands me the paper. And the same night, I could book my ticket. And I was in Assisi. And I won't tell you all the details because it will still be here tomorrow, but it was so very wonderful and blissful. And I recognized Assisi when I was in the train, when I thought that it was another hour away. I looked at a town and said, that's Assisi. And one thing I want to mention about that, to come back to the dream with the fear and everything, I was still having those frightful dreams for some reason, because in general, in my life, I'm not a very fearful person. But in the dream, these things would come up, I don't know why. And one day, I was in Assisi sending a postcard to a dear friend of mine, and I was writing her, it's so beautiful here. All you can see is the horizon and the birds, and all you can hear is the bells and the birds, and it's so very peaceful. And then a little grasshopper, poor little thing, jumped on my knee, but it scared me so much. I jumped, everything flew away, the card, the pen, my bag, everything just jumped in the air. I got so scared, and the little grasshopper was right there, and I could see its heartbeat, and it was as scared as I was. And then I looked at it and started laughing, you know, and thought how silly it was that I got so scared. And then we were called to do a group picture with Swamiji at that very moment. And Swamiji is sitting there, and he tells me, come here, come next to me. So I kneel next to him, and my face was at the height of his shoulder right here. And he says, listen, all we can hear is the bells and the birds, and all we can see is the horizon. And he says exactly the same words I was writing to my friend in the postcard a minute ago. And I tell him, oh, Swamiji, I was just writing this to my best friend, and this grasshopper jumped on me and scared me so much. It scared the life out of me. And he looks at me exactly like in my dream, with the same face, the same intonation, because my face was very close to his. And he says, do not fear. You're never alone. I am always with you. And this came with such a blessing that it's like a seed that's planted in my heart, in my soul, and every time in my life I needed courage, I would remember this up to now. You know, so many times in my life I will think, of Swamiji telling me, do not fear, you are never alone. I'm always with you. And for me, there's a difference between reading something, knowing something because you've read it, and knowing it because you experience it and it's there in your heart, you know? And I feel like this experience with Swamiji gives me the certitude, the how would you say, the conviction that I should not fear. I am never alone. He's always with me. And to continue on that same theme of fear, my daughter was born in September 94, and Swamiji named her. When I say Swamiji, but I'm sorry, I always want to say Daddy Ji because I would always call him Daddy Ji. Swamiji named her Mangala Rupa, and he named me Dhirja. And he says, this is to give you courage and strength because you will need it. And not too long after that, I had another dream of, actually, before I went to bed that night, I had, that time I had a very, very strong fright that came while I was awake, which was very unusual because I never had anxiety or strong fears like that would bother me in my life. But that night, there was a very, very strong fear, as if it was right there in my nose, and all the fears that I could have had in my life were condensed, packed, and right there in my face, and I felt so frightful. And so I sat down to meditate, and I would think of, do not fear, you're never alone, I'm always with you. And I felt it dissipate like a cloud. And then I went to sleep. And that night I dreamt of the same usual monster that would come and chase me and run after me with a huge stick. And then this time, what was unusual was that as I opened my arms and repeated the mantra and looked up the sky, I felt it resonate in the universe. My voice was so loud, and I felt the mantra resonate in the universe. And I turned around and grabbed the monster's stick, and I was chasing it, running after it. And then, after a few seconds, this monster was not scary anymore, but he was like, it was like a funny comedy. And he became like a friend. And we sat by the ocean with our arms, you know, his arm was over mine and mine was around his waist, and we were like old friends. And the monster tells me, you know, all these years, God sent me in your dreams, not to hurt you, but to help you find your own strength. And you know what woke me up that morning? The phone. And Swamiji called me. He was in Singapore, I think it is. And Swami, I think it was Ram Swarup who called me and said, Swamiji wants to talk to you. And Swamiji tells me, and so I'm still sleeping, you know. I hear Hari Om, Swamiji. Swamiji wants to talk to you, and I'm still waking up from that dream, and I'm like, yes, 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 Hari Om, Hari Om. Did I hear right? Swamiji wants to talk to me. Then I was happy, and Swamiji says, Hari Om, Hari Om, how are Dheeraja's fears this morning? And what to say? No. Oh, this was Swamiji. This was Swami Chidananda teaching me to be fearless, not to be afraid, and I cannot explain or describe what was happening because I'm still in the process of trying to understand fully, with my own life experience. So I can only share you little details like that. But for some reason, yeah, his blessing was his presence, his omnipresence, his omniscience, his knowing every second of my life. And yeah, and so his love is in every second of my life, every, it's hard to describe the blessing. Swamiji would always tell me, I love you as my own daughter. No, you are my daughter. You are my daughter. And he would say that so often. And at first I thought, oh, that's so nice of him to tell me something so kind. When I was 17, 18, you are my daughter. I am your father. I would call him Daddy G. And I remember one day after a retreat, we would stand and he would do pranams in front of Shivananda's picture, and then he would walk out and we would, show our respects as he was about to walk out. So when he was still near his chair, I was looking at him. I was very young. I was 17, 18, and I was speaking to him in my heart. Right away, I would speak to Swamiji in my heart because I knew there was something about this man from India that was out of the ordinary and that was connected to my heart. I knew that he was like walking Jesus on earth, And I looked at him and I was telling him in my heart, please don't let me ever forget about you. I'm a Westerner, he came with this totally different culture and teaching us yoga and the Gita and the mantras and everything about the philosophy of yoga. This all was new to me, and I was very young in North America, and I was telling him, don't let me ever forget about you, and I was feeling this so sincerely in my heart. I was talking to him and I felt, don't let me ever, ever, ever forget about you. Please always be in my life. And, ooh, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. And then Swamiji walked towards me and he shook his head and he tapped my cheek and said, my daughter, and my daughter. As if he was thinking, don't you worry. What a silly thought that I would let you forget about me. I don't know what he was thinking, but I really felt like he heard my heart and he would say, oh no, come on, don't worry about that. And after a CC, I gave I I gave I gave birth. I was blessed to have homeopathy in my life, and the birth was wonderful. And Mangalarupa is funny enough today. She reminds me in so many ways of St. Francis, because she has the simplicity in her taste. You know, she doesn't like anything too flashy. When she was 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, I would say, Mangalarupa, would you like me to get you this dress? Look how pretty this dress is. Would you like me to get this one or that one? And she would say, Mama, I already have 3 dresses at home. I don't need another one. You know? Or we would later come to India, and there were lovely jewelry in the shops. Oh, do you like these earrings? Would you like me to get these earrings for you? Mama, they're too flashy. No, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't need it. I already have earrings. And I would think, wow, that's not from me. You know, she didn't get that from me. She didn't get that from her, anyone I know in my family, you know. That really comes from her own, and, you know. And later, I wanted to share this with you. This was before, this was when I was 22. This was in 92, the year Swamiji gave me Diksha initiation. He was in Europe, and I was traveling. I was in Paris, and I asked him for initiation, and he says, I will give you come to Belgium. I will give you in Belgium. And I thought, how am I going to make it to Belgium? You know, I was broke. I didn't have much money. But out of some miracle, I made it to Belgium. And in Belgium, he says, come to this other town. And again, out of some miracle, I made it to the other town. And then come to Amsterdam. And finally, when we were still in Belgium, I was in a flower shop, and I wanted to get flowers for Swamiji. And there were so many huge and beautiful flowers, and I wanted to make a big bouquet for Swamiji, but I didn't have the money. And I felt a little bit sad that I couldn't afford to get him the big bouquet. So I would look at the flowers and say, oh, I would take this white flower and mix it with this pink one, and then with this red one, and that would be so beautiful. And for about half an hour, I was in the flower shop looking at the flowers and imagining the beautiful bouquet I would make for Swamiji. And then I stepped out with just a few seeds that I got for about $1. And that day, I took the train to Amsterdam, and Swamiji was there. And we were going to a retreat, but I couldn't afford that retreat. You know, I couldn't afford to go to the retreat. And Swamiji said, I've made arrangements so you can go stay at this woman's house. And I go to that woman's house, and the first thing she asks me when she opens the door is, do you like flowers? I said, yes. She says, do you want to help me during the retreat to make flowers, to make the bouquets, to prepare the flower garlands, to make the flower decoration on the table? Now, I spent a whole week doing flowers and preparing all the flowers for Swamiji. I ended up going to the retreat because I was going to do seva at the retreat. And Swamiji had me prepare the flowers the whole week. And it may seem trivial, but to me, you know, it showed me at a very young age that what I wish for sincerely, because I was in tears at that flower shop because I couldn't buy the flowers for Swamiji. And it was telling me what you really wish for, you will get. But what do you really wish for? What do you really want? You know? And at that retreat, when Swamiji was saying, God gives us what we wish for, and what do we really want? And he would repeat that, and it went in my heart, and I thought, okay, yes, that was to me the direct teaching, the invisible presence of the Guru, constantly teaching through this and through that. And I mean, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about, but this is just my experience and my own very personal experience, and that you certainly can relate to. And through this teaching and through this so very precious daily, weekly experiences, and every time I was with Swamiji, it was always miracle and a miracle in my heart like this, of little things he would show me. And it really, the invisible presence of my Guru kept growing, and it is still growing deeper and deeper today. And he's, though he left his body, he's still so very present. I had a dream of him 6 months before he left his body. I don't want to talk about it in details, but that gave me so much strength to accept his leaving his body. But in Nepal, thank you so much. In Nepal, in 2015, after the earthquake, I went to work with a rescue team, and I was there for about 2 weeks when, I'm sorry. I was there with a rescue team, and we would go up the mountain and work and bring some rescue to people who had no access to medical care. And we were waiting for a helicopter to go and rescue the Buddhist monks. And I was really looking forward to staying there a month and a half more. And then the whole time that I was there, you know, I felt very safe. Even though we were in places where the buildings were, you know, half broken or were totally demolished, I always felt very, very safe. And then one night, when we came down from the mountain, we went high up in the mountain and came back in town in Kathmandu. We were in a restaurant, and I heard this music, this classical music, that reminded me so much of my physical father. And I felt Swamiji's presence so, so strongly. And that night, I had a dream of Swamiji. I can't remember most of the dream, but I only remember curtains flying in the wind, a storm. And when I woke up, I could only remember that Swamiji was saying, don't go to the mountain. Go, leave, leave. Don't go to the mountain, leave. And I woke up with the absolute conviction that I should not go back up to the mountain with the team that day. So I went down for breakfast and I told the team, I'm sorry, I'm not going with you today to the mountain. But this feeling was still pushing. I felt Swamiji was saying, go, 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 leave, leave, go, in the sense of leave the country, get out of here, get out of Nepal. And so I thought, okay, I'll listen to this. Let me see if I can get some internet on my computer, because internet was very weak. It would break every 3 minutes. So I opened my computer, I look at the flights. Usually we could not get flights for within 24 hours for security reasons, but I get a flight for the same night. Internet doesn't cut. I get to buy my ticket, book a flight to Switzerland to my cousin's place. And so I tell the team, the rescue team, not only am I not going with you today, but I'm leaving the country tonight. So they tell me, Ingrid, why? You wanted to go rescue you wanted to be with us for the rescue work for the Buddhist monks. What's the matter? I said, I have to follow my heart. I have to follow my intuition. Something tells me I have to go, and I really have to go. And I really felt Swamiji was telling me, go, go, go. And during the whole day, I felt like, okay, it's time to go. And that night, I flew to Geneva to see my cousin. And when I arrived in Geneva, my cousin hugs me to say hello. And while she's still hugging me, she says, did you get the news? I said, what news? And she said, no, of course you were in the plane. And she says, there was another earthquake in Nepal, almost as big as the first one. So right away when I get to her place, I write the team, the rescue team, on Facebook, and I ask them, how are you guys doing? Is everything okay? I got the news. And they tell me there was a landslide, there was like 12 feet of mud on the road, we had to shovel, but Ingrid, the room that you were going to be working in collapsed completely. So it's a good thing that you left. And again, I spent about 2-3 weeks saying thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Swamiji, thank you. Oh my God, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know how many times Swamiji saved my life like this. I'm not sure how many times, but I am forever in his debt and forever devoted and to him. This life belongs to him, and I love him forever. And speaking of love, in some dreams with Swamiji, there would be a love that is beyond understanding, a love that doesn't fit in the brain. You know, sometimes I would wake up and think, I didn't even know that this kind of love existed. You know, it's a love that even now I try to think about it, and I'm not even sure I can remember it because it doesn't fit in the brain. It's so immense. It's only when I wake up that I think, oh my goodness, this is so huge. And then, yes, and again, I feel like I only see the tip of the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg. And again, you know, because my vision is so very limited, and I'm just in the process of learning and trying to get over kindergarten school. Yes. And my God, there's so many, so many, so many stories like that. Um, but basically, um, basically, I can only say that it gives me the conviction, all these little experiences that belong to, I'm not sure what, you know, to to the realm of maybe this limited mind, and I'm not even going to go into trying to explain it, but it gives me at least the heart conviction that anything else in this life is a waste of time. Anything else than trying to understand or experience more or be united with this love, be one with the divine, you know. That's the only thing that's worthwhile. And
some more time, you can tell some more incidents.
huh?
There is time for some more incidents.
Some more. Well, they're gonna fall asleep.
You have some more incidents?
Let me see. Some of them are so very personal, you know, that so very.
You can just do Ram Nam for 10 minutes.
You know, the very first dream I can remember, that was meaningful to me. That would teach me something in my heart. The very first dream I had in when I was 20 years old, I think, yeah, I was 20. I dreamt that I was in a helicopter and it was nighttime and I was above the ocean and I was thrown in the water in the middle of, I could see the shore very far, but I was thrown in the water, and in the water there were very high waves. It was dark, and I was trying to see where is the light, where is the shore, and I couldn't see it anywhere. And then I felt like, well, it's been a bit of a while that I'm here and I don't know where to swim. I don't know where the light is. And there were sharks that were starting to turn around. And I looked at the sky. I just thought, okay, this is how I'm going to leave this world. So I lay on my back, opened my arms. I started repeating Om Triambakam as I looked at the stars. And my body was lifted above the ocean and thrown to the shore where there was light. And there again, Swami Chidananda was there saying, do not fear, you're never alone. I'm always with you. I think that was one of the first time I dreamt of him saying this. And, you know, I think it was showing me about surrender. And Um, and well, I'm trying to think of a story that I can tell. I feel like many others, I'm like, no, I don't want to talk about that. No, I don't want to talk about that. Oh, this one, oh, no. So I'm going through, what could I share? No, it's not that one either. The invisible presence of Swami Chidananda was so, I don't know what adjective to give to it. You know, it just is. His invisible presence, his invisible divine presence I would dream of him a lot. And one thing I can say is that when Swamiji would say, you know, I love you as my own daughter. No, you are my daughter. I am your father. He would say it so often, and at first I thought, oh, it's so nice of him to say that. And then I really, at some point, got it. You know, it takes me a while, but then I clicked and I got it that I have to see, to perceive, to know that God is my father. God is my mother. Only God is my father and my mother. And it's funny because today, when I speak with my patients and they tell me about their parents, you know, experiences with parents can be difficult. You know, it's not everybody who has the experience of loving parents and a wonderful relationship with parents, you know. And today, I often think of Swami Chidananda as I share with my patients that, can you try to visualize, can you try to see maybe and eventually understand, but first see and feel when you say mom, when you say dad, can you see God? Can you try to see God as your father? Then you identify yourself, your being, as the child of God, and that the Divine Mother is your mother. And when you say mama, don't think of your physical mother. Think of the Divine Mother and know that she is your eternal mother. She was your mother before you were born to this physical mother. God has been your father and will always be your father, no matter who your physical father is. And that is something that brings a lot of relief, a lot of peace to my patients when I tell them that, when I share that with them. Sometimes I will tell them about Swamiji, and I will tell them where this thought came from in my life. I will tell them sometimes about my own experience. And recently I was talking to somebody and I was telling him, and he was saying, yeah, I know, yeah, God is my father. I said, okay, then if you say mama, who do you see? And he would say, well, this woman, you know. Okay, say mama and feel that it's God. You know, for you in India, it may be natural, and you know, it's very natural. It's very common. It's a common understanding, you know. But for for us Westerners, you know, Swamiji came to the West and started from scratch. You know, he would teach. Well, of course, in Catholicism, you know, we can also see God sometimes as our father, our mother, but the way Swami Chidananda would put the seed and let it grow, you know, all glory to him. My goodness, you know, to go places and meet devotees and I just think it's so extraordinary. I'm fascinated by this extraordinary being. This so humble, so loving, so generous, so kind, so compassionate, so intelligent, you know. He spoke 20 languages, but yet when you see him on videos talking, let's say in Japan, he has a Japanese interpreter. He's in Lebanon with an Arabic interpreter, or in France or Belgium with a French interpreter. He would speak, and then sometimes he would correct them and say, this is what I said. Oh, and then he would understand what they said, no matter what language they spoke in, and then he could repeat the sentence because he knew that the interpreter missed a little point, you know, in the sentence. You know, he is the embodiment of divine love, divine being, and grace. And I'm still learning in the learning process too. Yeah. So that was just my little experience that I could share.
You can do 5 minutes, Ram.
Ram, okay.
You can do 10 minutes?
I can do 10 minutes. You tell me. So thank you for your patience. Thank you. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Om. 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 Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Om. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Om. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram Om. Shri Ram Jai Ram Jai Jai Ram. 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 Thank you. I must say that Swami Chidananda ji loved Papa Ramdas so much, huh? Yeah. Did you cut? Oh, it's still running?
It's still
Oh, okay. I thought we had already. Bye. Hari Om.